The Suns and their closing efforts in this game against the Sacramento Kings could have came without the need for it. Nonetheless, they showed another context in which they can win games, and that's coming from behind and ultimately flipping the switch and dictating with defense and activity in a sustained manner. A couple of things that just have to consistently be seen from this team to get to the level that they can be at ceiling-wise. Nonetheless, before we get to that, we have to give a head tip to the lineups that existed prior to the run, which is a lineup specifically structured between 7 players between Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Eric Gordon, Chimezie Metu, and Drew Eubanks. That was +8 in 2 different combinations. Those set of players were +8 to end the third quarter, going 12-4 in the run to end that quarter, and that's what really helped to set a tone ultimately for what was to come in the fourth. So you want to give a hat tip to that lineup before we get into the film session. And then here we're going to start off with 2 reps from the lineup that really helped to set a tone and kind of take the torch from that lineup into the fourth quarter stretch early on to give them a chance to really stamp things and go into that final 5-11 stretch. So before we get to that final 5-11, let's look at what was going on with the lineup that existed priorly, ultimately giving Frank Vogel and company the blueprint for what this team needed to do to win this game. So here we see the Sacramento Kings going with their signature wedge action to get the small screen for Sabonis, and we already see Kevin Durant on Sabonis, which was the entire fourth quarter, the plot of the game. But we're looking at, first of all, how far out this catch point is for Sabonis. This is Durant doing his homework and doing his work early. And then in addition to that, you can kind of see how he's playing to be able to slide and cut off the angle of any left-handed drive from Sabonis. Everyone knows on the scouting report he wants to get to his left hand. It's easier said than done in terms of stopping him from doing so, especially with how good of a driver he is out of triple threat especially. Nonetheless, Durant does his job containing the ball initially. He gets additional help from Grayson Allen on the dig. We get the stunt. He passes it out, and then they end up going to repost. Durant again does a great job eating up that airspace on the catch, making it difficult for him, and then playing with activity. In addition to getting from stunt on the initial catch to now we see Grayson Allen completely putting 2 to the ball. The Suns are very much on time with their rotations out of that. The Kings spacing is not the best, but that's all in addition to what the Suns are doing with activity defensively. And look at what Josh Okogie is doing. And this is why I keep harping on the fact that the small ball lineups don't all have to always be offensive minded. You need to be able to blend and balance it in different constructs with some defense for the lineup ultimately to sustain across multiple renditions over the course of a game, and especially in pockets if you're dictating with it to close. Here in this lineup rendition, we're seeing Josh Okogie as well as Chimezie Metu, and we see them both come in tandem to kind of make things happen in this stretch of the game. And here we just see Okogie playing off of that closeout, taking over for Grayson Allen as they rotate out of that, containing the ball, forces a redirect once. Grayson Allen shows some good support at the nail. In addition to Okogie staying in the play, fighting from behind, he's ultimately going to get a block. Chimezie's able to hit ahead to Booker, runs through, and now they're able to play in the advantage. Grayson Allen knocks down a 3. Timeout Kings. And then now we come out of that timeout, and the Kings are getting into their version of motion offense, getting into 5-out delay action, flowing into it with Sabonis having the ball at the top of the key. And the Suns are just doing a great job with all of their activity, from Booker navigating the screens, Grayson Allen navigating screens. And then we're going to see as Durant closes that airspace, gives Sabonis something to think about. You see Devin Booker now navigating. Kevin Durant does a good job just staying attached. Everything's not initially a switch at this portion of the game. They're kind of switching a little bit more when they force the Kings to get into rescreen actions. Nonetheless, you see how they're just flattening out all of the Kings' actions right here. Ultimately, they get a paint touch on the left elbow for Sabonis, and look at how Durant is loading up on that left side of Sabonis' body, not allowing him to get into that rip through to get to that left hand like he wants to. Ultimately, he does get one dribble into that left, but Durant, with his length, is able to close that airspace again, play with size, and he's going to get additional support from the back end from Grayson Allen again with some very, very smart and timely help. The Suns get a stop. And now we get into that final 5-11 stretch where the Suns really started to dictate with that final lineup with Eric Gordon and Bradley Beal coming in place of Josh Okogie and Chimezie Metu. That lineup going +19 in the final stretch of the fourth quarter. And looking at that lineup, starting on the offensive side of the floor, I want to look at these small screens. We keep talking about them. A lot of times it's going to see Sean recover as opponents are going to want to keep one defender out of actions if possible. So a show and recover to kind of try to flatten out the initial drive that might come off the screen, but keeping the matchups relatively advantageous in their favor. So what the Suns are now starting to find within that process of small screens is this quick kick off the ball from whoever it is that's handling, trying to negotiate the switch. And that pass is automatically going to get a reaction out of whoever it is that the Kings or whoever the opponent is trying to keep out of action. And because of that, as we see the Suns trying to get to Sabonis, Bradley Beal with this quick kick off of the ball forces Kevin Durant to rotate over to the ball, because the ball is most important. Regardless of what your scheme is, you want to have somebody cutting off the ball. And this is a very smart boomerang back to Bradley Beal, as because of their attention to detail within their small screening, manipulating advantages, and then knowing how to sustain and keep the advantage that they desire, ultimately is going to net Bradley Beal a drive. And because the Kings are on high alert, because of the mismatch that is Sabonis on Beal, we see even heavier nail support than normal from the Kings, as we see Kevin Durant fire off and get to the ball. Grayson Allen's respacing as far away as he possibly can. Because he stretches that, he's able to play off of the closeout, which he's extremely good at. Nice escape dribble into a one dribble pull up from deep. And that's a green release for Grayson Allen. And now here we get to the defensive side of the floor. And this is where things started to get fun with this lineup, as we're going to start seeing them get into, like I mentioned, that late switch scenario. So we get the screen here from Sabonis on Bradley Beal. And because of Kevin Durant's length, you would think conceding this pull-up pocket to Malik Monk is an issue. But because it's Kevin Durant, he can be below the free throw line and get a more than solid contest up on his shot from Malik Monk, which ultimately turns it into a pass where he tries to hit Sabonis late. And then because of the veer back switch, as we see the late switch between Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant, Durant's length ultimately enables Bradley Beal the opportunity to get in there for the late switch, the veer back switch. Suns get a stop, playing with pace and transition. And this is where Kevin Durant, one of many contexts where he's optimized for this Suns team. And looking at Durant specifically in that transition context, he is the second best in terms of points per possession for players with 2+ field goal attempts in transition this season. He's at 1.47 points per possession, and his field goal percentage at 72% for players with 2 or more attempts in transition is the best in the NBA. So the Suns finding ways to push pace in pockets, dictating with defense, and enabling themselves opportunity to play in the open floor is what's really mattering most. And we saw a ton of that in this stretch of the game from this closing lineup. And here we're going to see a little bit more of the same, this time in a pocket where the Kings took Sabonis off the floor for a quick break. So we're going to see a small screen from the Kings this time. We see the Suns with the small switch. And then we're going to see Grayson Allen doing a solid job of just staying attached to the hip. But in addition to that, as we take our attention away from the ball, we look at Kevin Durant, who is now, as we see here, the low man, stepping in with a one-step contest. And you see how, because of the threat of his length, De'Aaron Fox doesn't even bother trying to get up the shot. But as we look past that, we're also going to see Eric Gordon doing a great job with his rotation, sinking in. And you see him playing two, and you see him wait for the commit to the pass. Ultimately, he's going to step in the pass lane, take away that pass that was attempted by Fox. And guess what? Now the Suns are playing again in the open floor, in transition. They get the hit-ahead pass, and then we're going to see them just play off of the advantage that comes from that. Durant's ultimately able to bring 2 to the ball because of where Grayson Allen cuts. And this is Durant's gravity playing out in transition. Grayson Allen is going to end up being on high alert as he turns to see that his man left him to go put 2 to the ball. This is a very high IQ cut from him just to flash the space. That gets another reaction in addition to a paint touch. And now you got the defensive dominoes falling on the kick back out. Great pass from Allen to Gordon. Gordon's going to wait a beat, hit it to Durant, and Durant knocks down that 3. And they kept the Kings defense scrambling in addition to all else in chaos that they were inducing upon them with their defense. And then now we see the Suns again back on the defensive side of the floor. We see a smart switch up. We see a high switch here. Good job on the communication. This is where they've seen issues before, but they do a very solid job being sharp with it here. And then we're going to see as the Kings get into delay again in the rep without Sabonis on the floor. The Suns just doing a great job. We got Devin Booker navigating the screen with intent. Ultimately, it's going to be an offensive foul. The second one that he drew in this late third to fourth quarter stretch of the game. He was just doing a great job being solid, not scoring the best on efficiency, but being active and playing with a sense of urgency on the defensive side of the floor. And then now we get Sabonis back on the floor. This is after a miss from the Suns, so the matchups are not exactly what they want. But watch how they navigate the process defensively. Sticking with the same principles, Eric Gordon's now on Sabonis. They flow off of their wedge action, like I mentioned, one of their signature plays. And as we see Sabonis playing out of the high post, we see them try to get into their empty angle handoff to try to get one of the guards downhill. Malik Monk gets downhill. He turns the corner slightly, but Eric Gordon is attached. And as I pause it here, we're going to look at the low man here, Kevin Durant. We've talked about their issues with the low man before. Kevin Durant is peeled in extremely early, and he's going to end up, again, just being a factor in everything, just being in position early, ultimately making Malik Monk double clutch, hesitating his reads, and then that enables opportunity for Grayson Allen sinking in under Sabonis as we see him rotate here as the Suns kind of scramble. Does a great job sinking in under to take that pass away. Ultimately just playing with activity, get a stop, and now they're playing again in the open floor. He's going to be able to hit Bradley Beal on the lane fill, and that's a bucket for the Suns. And then here, another fun rep defensively. We see the Suns with Devin Booker navigating this wide screen here. Does a solid job getting back around, flattening out action. And then as they get into the rescreen, trying to get to that outer third of the floor, this is where the Suns were very solid all game. This time we're going to see Durant with Fox in the empty corner, late shot clock. And this is where Durant is just able to play with length. He can slide with almost anybody in the game. And if you're playing in the late clock, he knows he has that to his advantage as well. Doesn't have to overreact to anything. Knows that Fox is probably going to settle for a jumper. Plays it patiently. Plays with length. Crowds the airspace. No foul. Suns get another stop. Now they're playing in transition. And now they're at the defense is at their mercy at this point. They're able to play with the advantage. Defense is scrambling. Quick pass from Devin Booker to Kevin Durant on the hit ahead. Ultimately sees Durant pitch it back to Booker, then respace off of that pass. And the Suns are just playing in flow at this point. And these are warm-up jumpers that they're knocking down, incrementally chipping away at this lead that the Kings did have, while compiling stops at the same time. And as you can see, as I still frame it here, Kings haven't scored a bucket in 3 minutes and 51 seconds as the Suns continue to just chip away. And now we're going to see Kevin Durant again just pushing the catch point of Sabonis so high up the floor that the Kings are really not even getting any offense ran at this point. And then they get into the screen, and that's going to be a switch this time. Now we got Durant playing in space this time with Malik Monk. He's able to cut him off, redirect him, play with physicality to the legal limit, stay attached and engaged on the ball, get up a very solid contest that forces a late pass. And this is just kind of a part of the process where when you're playing small, you're going to leave yourself susceptible to buckets like this. This is not a hiccup in the process. It's just kind of some of what you're conceding when you're doing all of the switching. Puts the small and Grayson Allen on Sabonis. He's going to make this one. It's not a hiccup in the process. Again, it's just kind of part of what you're conceding. Nonetheless, you see them stay attached. Very sharp defense. And it just kind of runs out at the end of that shot clock. Nonetheless, a still very solid possession where they made the Kings work. And now we're going to see as they get back to the offensive side of the floor. Look at this from Devin Booker. Doing just a great job attacking off of the screen. See the point of the screen is extremely high. And we see him just attacking the leverage of Sabonis. Ultimately, he's going to take some gravity with him. Does a solid job just getting off it. And Grayson Allen with this very quick connecting pass here is able to hit Eric Gordon. He's wide open for his three. And that's cash. All is off of the Suns playing with pace, using another small screen, getting to Sabonis, and then Devin Booker stringing out two to the ball in different ways. This time off of the drive and allowing his teammates to play connector around, and that's some money. And then here, after they concede 2 offensive rebounds, they ultimately end up getting a stop on a hustle rebound from Grayson Allen. And now they got the Kings at their mercy as they just got them overreacting to everything. We got Sabonis trying to pressure Devin Booker at the half-court line. That's not in the Kings' favor. He falls. Ultimately, Devin Booker is able to play within the advantage. Swing. Eric Gordon wide open for 3, and we got a tie ball game. And the Suns get back to the defensive side of the floor here, and we're going to see the Kings getting into some of their action. We see another switch from the Suns, and this is Grayson Allen just being solid. Got the Kings playing out of their offense, not getting into any of the things that really make them a good team, especially tough in crunch time, solid contest. Suns get a stop. But I want to pay attention to this part of everything. As we get into these small ball lineups, it's really on Kevin Durant to just be solid. He doesn't always have to lock things down. Just playing solid against opposing bigs. Eventually, they're going to try to exert their will and be over-aggressive with them. And it's in these pockets where the Suns are going to be enabled to present themselves with an advantage. And Sabonis being over aggressive here, trying to run over the back of Durant, and hat tip to Durant for boxing out, ultimately nets him an offensive foul. Suns are going to get free throws. Kevin Durant's going to knock down both of those. They're going to take the lead and ultimately be in the driver's seat the rest of the way. Just these little things from the Suns, flipping matchups, playing with activity, the sense of urgency from them defensively, and just being connected and giving themselves opportunity by playing on the break in the open floor is what we're starting to see more of over the last 2 games, between this win against the Kings and their efforts to stall and wall off the Portland Trailblazers by flipping matchups. Seeing them do these little things, finding pockets to do so and dictate and string together stops in the fourth quarter is important. And this was another bookmark to keep in terms of their process and where they're headed towards finding their identity in closing.